Right. Speaking of presentations, well, most of you know that I've been presenting. Do I have to admit somebody, Inga, or somebody is in the waiting room?
No, we will do it. Yeah.
You can do it. Okay.
Thank you.
Most of you know that I've been presenting for Express Publishing. I've been doing methodological academic presentations for years. However, I also heard and also did business presentations. I teach business English and presentation skills at Riga Business School. And funnily enough, most of my students, especially for presentations course, are people from business and people from marketing, people working in marketing. And they come to learn how to present in English better. Why? Perhaps, now, okay, this thing is not working now. Okay, it's not working. This is something I didn't check. Yeah, thank you. Why? Because people fear speaking in public. That doesn't refer to teachers, doesn't it? We usually love hearing our own voices, don't we? But normal people, regular people, don't like speaking in public. In fact, a couple of years ago, there was a survey done, and fear of public speaking is #1, or used to be #1 phobia, before fear of death. Isn't it interesting, do you think? So people generally refrain from speaking in public. They are even more scared of speaking in public if they have to speak in English or in any foreign language. I hope you all agree with me. I don't see your faces. So that's the case. When we present online, and over the last year and a half, most of us had to present online, it's even more so. Because you don't see the audience, just like I don't see you now on your screens, because most of the cameras are off. It's usually rather difficult to move because the space is confined. I am using the school's classroom and the school's IT support, the school I work for. You feel like you're on your own. You don't see, and that's what you hear. You don't see the audience's faces, eyes. You don't get the energy. So it's even more challenging oftentimes. But the thing is that our students will have to present online. There is no other way. This pandemic showed that most of the meetings are held online, and they will most probably continue to do so. We have online conference, we have online classes. Let's hope that we will all be able to teach face-to-face, but we have to be prepared to teach online as well. And this is now a life skill to teach our students, to teach ourselves as well. So what do? How do we overcome the fear? By practicing. That's what teachers do. So I'm going to talk about 4 different things today. Very briefly, why we present, how to structure the presentation, how to use the visuals, and how to prepare basically what to do, what not to do when you present. And I'll take about hopefully 40 minutes. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I don't see a chat box, but I'll switch to the chat box afterwards, and I'll be more than happy to answer and to comment. All right? Shall we start? So why do we present? We communicate. In a way, you can call it a presentation. When we communicate. We present when we inform, and that's what we do in class, or our students do when they present in class. And there is a huge group of people who try to persuade us, and they also present. And these are politicians, religious leaders, any cult leaders, any marketeers. So even if you or your students are not one of them, it's good to know how they structure their presentations so that you understand what they're doing. That's basically what I tell my students. Okay? When we present, however, there is kind of an internal conflict. Here is the presenter thinking there are two main problems: how to get the people listen to them and how to keep their attention. And since I teach adults, I usually say, unless your audience is your subordinate, unless they have no other choice but to listen to you, you'd better tell them something worth their time. Because otherwise, why should people waste or give you their time? The audiences, the people in the audience are usually, what's in it for me? Why should I why should you listen to me? Now, who am I to tell you whatever about presentation? I hope to make it clear. But the thing is to remember, it's all about the audience. We are there for them. I am telling you all this for you. I hope that you will find it useful, because not for myself, not because I like the sound of my voice. Every teacher does, but still. So we need to be, both people-friendly and, well, I'm also a certified neural language coach, so I'll bring a brain in a bit. In order for the audience to find your presentation pleasant and useful, you have to be polite. You can't talk down to them. You can't be arrogant. I'm telling you what you need to know, especially if these are business people. And you have to be on time. Now, from the brain perspective, and also from the perspective of your presentation being effective, it has to be well structured, because brain likes structure. It hates unpredictability. And you want your students or your audience's brains to be calm. You also have to keep in mind that attention span is short. If you present to your students, even more so, the younger the student, the shorter attention span. And the thing is that we usually remember what's important for our existence. So if you can bring in food, basically there are several things, just very few: food, shelter, and sex. You can't bring sex into your classroom, for secondary school kids, but something that is vitally important for your students, that might be efficient. Now, speaking about the structure, remember the brain likes structure. Just like with an essay, there should be a start, the body, and the finish. Yeah, and in this start, here is your chance to tell your audience, and that's what you will teach your students when they present. This is the chance to tell your audience why they would listen to you. So who you are, what right do you have to tell them something? What expertise do you have to tell them something? In my presentation, in my current presentation, that's why I told you, I put my degrees on the first slide and told you about my experience in presenting and teaching presentation skills. Hopefully that would convince you that I have something worthwhile to say. The why should you listen to me? Again, in my presentation, I told you that people are afraid of presenting, so it's worth practicing. B, your students will have to present all their lives, so it's worth teaching them this. The what is very important. That's the plan. And it's important for the audience to know where you are, how long it will, what part of the presentation you are at. And because then they can follow, okay, she's talked about this, now she's going to talk about this, 10 minutes until coffee. And that's very important. That's the coffee break. And sometimes the audience, some members of the audience are not interested in the whole of your presentation, but they want to listen to just one part. So they will wake up then. And how? The how means how long, when the questions should be asked, and so on. They're the mechanics. The body, when you present main points, and the finish, when your audience will know, okay, this is the end. And the finish should have a signal, kind of, okay, this is the end of the presentation. A quick summary, so that they will remember what you spoke about, a conclusion, and thanks. Okay, so far, so good. Speaking about the start, it's nice if you can hook your audience right away with something effective. Either a joke, a personal story. Now, your personal story does not need to be true. No one is going to check you. I actually used what is called amazing facts. I remember I told you that fear of public speech is #1 phobia. So hopefully that hooked you. Okay. So this is how to start. Now, when we come to the body of presentation, this is my visual. This is how I can draw. Sorry about, research shows, we know that people are attentive in the very beginning of the presentation or of the lesson and at the very end. Yeah. So how do we make them awake? We call it signposting. When you perhaps briefly summarize what you've done so far in your lesson or in your presentation and tell your students, and now we are going to move on to the next step in your plan. And that's how people, okay, this is next step. I'm interested in this. So my next step is the finish. Remember, we signal that this is the finish, this is the end. Then we quickly summarize what we've been talking about, just in case people forgot. And then the conclusion that should reflect the why, and then nice closing remarks. Okay, so this is the structure. Remember the start, the body with signposting, and the finish. Okay, now let's talk about visuals. That's the next point. I'm signposting. When we speak about visuals, there are several types. The slides, that's PowerPoint or any other Prezi, whatever presentation software you're using. Sometimes you would not use any slides, like on a bus trip. We will not use any slides. You can still do presentation. You can use Realia. However, very often people forget that the presenter herself or himself is a visual aid. And we need to be aware of that. And when we present online, our background is also visual aid. So we're not going to talk much about Realia, but let's quickly run through some of these. Slides, you've all heard, the death by PowerPoint, or power corrupts, PowerPoint corrupts, absolutely. I'll go through these fairly quickly, because I don't think I'll, tell you something you don't know. The usual thing is we read much faster than we speak. So if you put the whole text on the slide, then your audience will switch into reading the text. They will not listen to you. And it's a myth. Multitasking is a myth. You can't both read and listen. If you ever watched a film with subtitles, notice that you will that you either read subtitles or you listen to the actors. So don't put the whole text onto your slides. Use bullets, bullet points, and keywords only if you want the audience to listen to you. And you do. Otherwise, just send them a text, right? We all know that pictures, a picture tells 1,000 words. That's true. And they are very effective. However, don't overdo pictures. Don't put more than 2 pictures on one slide. And the pictures should be justified. They should illustrate the message, not just any nice picture. Yeah, there should be reason for that, for everything. This is rather common. No one does that anymore, but still, some people might. Choose your colors very, very carefully so that you don't give your audience a headache with this. Okay? So that's about the slides. Now let's talk about the presenter. The most important visual. When you present, whether online or face-to-face, you have to look confident. Even if you don't feel confident, and that's what I tell my students, I suggest that you tell your students, even if you don't feel confident, then fake it till you make it. There is research by Amy Cuddy from Harvard University, and she said that, the posture, this posture, the V, that athletes make, this gesture, it's universal across the languages. It's not culture specific. People from different cultures, when they achieve something, that's an open posture which signals confidence, because you are making yourself open. That means you are confident. So research shows that even by physically making this posture, you will feel a bit more confident. Of course, your students should know that they can't present, if it's research work for student research, they can't come in, torn jeans. They should look appropriate. Body language, that's what we know. Eye contact with the audience when it's live audience. Eye contact, hopefully, with online audience if it's possible. Gestures, face expression. I know I have a very expressive face, so it's difficult to control, but I need to. And speaking clearly. And here comes pronunciation and everything. Pauses, voice techniques, and so on. Now, when we present online or when we teach online, it's a bit more challenging. Keep in mind that when you present from your home, you invite the whole world into your home. When you teach online, it's like, demonstration lesson. You don't know. There might be parents, grandparents watching you. Moreover, if your background is, let's say, cluttered, then your students will be watching and looking at what you have on your walls, what you have on your shelves, what books you have over there, what do you read. So ideally, it should be a neutral background, perhaps with one small or something like a small picture or something that doesn't distract from you. Another thing is, it's important that your face is well lit so that you are seen clearly. Last year, just like everyone else, I taught from home. I rearranged furniture in my living room to accommodate, the background. And I dragged a floor lamp so that I had lights right in front of my face so that students could see me clearly. A word about makeup. Try to avoid, if possible, and that refers to men as well, try to avoid shiny skin. Use powder and try to avoid shiny lipstick. It doesn't look good on screen. You have to see yourself on camera. I've seen myself, I've seen teachers teaching with only half of the face visible. So if you can't see yourself on the camera, be sure your students can't see you as well. And ideally, you are not just a talking head. You don't appear to your students or to your audience just like a talking head. So try to include, okay, you can see me here, but when I talk, when I'm, I don't know, on a meeting, or when I teach from home, then I try to show my hands somehow into the camera so that I come across as more real to my students. And it's difficult, but try not to talk too fast. Okay, so how do we prepare for the presentation? How should we teach our students to prepare for the presentation? You have to have the message, you have to be sure that you know what you're talking about, so research first, that's obvious. But still, many people tell me that they start with slides. And the slides is not something you start with. You first need to know what you're going to say, to present, and in which order. Then you prepare. Then you rehearse a presentation. Okay. So some do's. Be prepared, of course. You have to know your stuff. That's unavoidable. You have to keep it structured. Remember, the brain likes structure. The slides should be clear and simple. Diagrams and pictures, not too many, but still. It's good to have good energy. If I usually say that to my students, if you are enthusiastic about a topic, you will pass it on, even online, even through the screen. But if you are not interested in the topic, why should your audience be interested? And body language, of course, I can't tell you in 40 minutes is not enough to, to deliver everything from a whole course, but still, you can research it. Effective opening to keep the audience attention. The end of the presentation should be, summary and conclusion. And one more thing, regardless of whether you present online or face-to-face, we all use equipment. So make sure that your equipment works. It cannot be more embarrassing, and believe me, I've been in situations when my equipment didn't work, when I came to present and there is no connectivity or the program is different, and then you have to improvise. Teachers can improvise, we can, but your students won't be able to. So check and double check. Other things like what not to do, and that's important especially for younger students, less experienced students. Don't break the floor. Don't be, oh, I forgot what I wanted to say. Oh no, I wanted to mention this in the previous slide. Don't do that. If you made a mistake, go ahead. Don't rush, especially online. Reading from screen is usually for live face-to-face presentation, and that provides a very miserable impression, you know, like lifeline. So students who read from screen. Well, you don't turn your back to the audience. That's obvious. You try to use your voice in such a way that your audience is not put to sleep. Arms, that's a very defensive gesture. Yeah. And you don't, if you make a mistake, that's what I usually tell my students. You made a mistake, chances are no one will notice. And if they do, they'll tell you afterwards. And then you can say, yeah, well, yeah, that was a mistake. But don't go, oh, you know, I'm sorry, there is a mistake here. Don't do that. It doesn't give a good impression. So that's basically it. I'm signaling. The main things I would like you to take away from this is the first thing, the most important thing is your audience. It's for your audience, not for you, that we present. The structure. Remember, people find structured presentation much easier to understand. So start, body, finish, signposting during the body. Effective use of visuals. Don't forget that you are also a visual. Your background is a visual, especially for online presentations. And your slides should be well prepared. And of course, practice. Practice makes perfect. Now, in terms of practice, I just wanted to point out that these books from Express Publishing all have presentation skills included in the content of course books. I Wonder for younger learners, and the others are for secondary basic and secondary school. And there is also a separate presentation skills practice book for, you know, for your students. So when everything is done, presentations can be fun. And there is no need to be afraid of presentation and of presenting. I hope you teach your students to enjoy presentations. I'm sure you'll enjoy those as well, speaking in public as teachers. Thank you very much.